and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to today's video together with me, where I will mention some of the things that are coming up during this 8A gateway, which we just experienced, we just had and walked through, and then also what is today the solar eclipse in Leo, which is a very, very transformative time. As you know, these are always usually in the summer times of the eclipses, and I've talked about this the whole summer, that this is the emphasis of our journey, but also planetary retrogrades, which are many at this time. So I want to share with you my recent experience because it kind of aligns with that. But before that, I wish to share a little bit about what this year's 8-8 energetically represents, and I share everything always the way I feel it, the way it's expressed through my own life and journey, and it might reflect, you know, through some of the people, and it might be mirrored in the realities and perhaps even in your reality. So this year's 8-8 gateway was, for me, it was like a very long awaited period of building that stability. And when we say stability, it's not always that external, which we think of first, right? The safe grounds or stable life, stable resources, you know, just like the housing, where we live, how we live. But basically, I'm talking about the stability, that is the stability of the inner balance, which is permanent. It's not so much in flux that we felt during so many times that as volunteer souls, especially, we had to encounter in our reality. We had to walk through these, you know, ups and downs. What I'm talking about here is the stability of permanent joy, which is the joy. It's like joie de vivre, right? That's like that joy of life, the joy to truly be alive and have that thirst for life, which is the expression of life in the material realm, which is no longer lived through that disconnection and separation, but true enlightenment lived in the vertical and then meeting the horizontal expression of life, which is the union. It's the union of all polarities of spirit and matter, and I've talked about this through this whole journey, and how this actually cannot be, you know, it's like there are many paths that can be shown to you, there's many steps you can do and take, and it all depends upon what you're guided to personally on your own individual level of your soul embodiment. But how you get there, of course, varies. But when you get to those last steps, right, which are just in front of those breakthrough moments for you as a soul living here in this realm, whatever your mission is, you know, whatever your purpose here at this time, you know, kind of like requires of you, or, you know, your soul requires for the attainment of the whole as a unique counterpart of totality of whole, the sum of all parts. But it's like that step, those few steps cannot be shown to you, cannot be shown to any one of us. And this is what this energy feels like. It's kind of like that hidden, veiled aspect that each of us now has to push through or move through on our own. It's not even something that we can read somewhere or listen in the videos or tune in or find anywhere, because when you find yourself at that attainment level, however that will be expressed for you, there is no this is how you feel when you come to that spot. It doesn't exist. But you will feel that nudge to really, really kind of like you want to go through this with the brilliance of your own being, without any interferences like what someone's saying about this, you know, what is the general energy about this. It's like, you know, for me that doesn't apply, because there is no such thing. You will see that when you truly, truly walk your own inner path. And as a reflection to that, when I'm saying stability, is that, you know, we all go through phases in life when we get a little discouraged, when we don't feel that enthusiasm anymore. And remember, in the previous video I talked about the importance and meaning of the inner child, the divine child that is born through our inner union first, because even when you want to experience illumined union in a sacred devotional partnership, they each counterpart, you know, aspect, they have to birth that divine child within them first. It's not like, oh, you know, we're going to do that when we come together. If we come together, it doesn't happen like this, because the triangulation point between you occurs as a direct reflection of your own triangulation, which you have built, which is this beautiful love presence. And like I said and explained to you, that the inner child carries an aspect of that love, which is born through divinity and the divine mother and father of life. So it's like this direct offspring, and it holds so much potential once you fully embrace it. And when you do, you will see life is just, it's magical. Even when you feel like, oh, every day I'm encountering the same things and situations and repetitions, and it's I'm cycling energy, and it no longer feels that way, because even though it feels like on earth there's this karmic recycling of energy present, you are free of it, or, you know, no external thing or person or situation has an effect on you in that way, so that it would in any way contribute or negate your joy. So when you have that experience, you will see, you'll be able to laugh at the states you experienced previously. Okay, you'll be in that state of, wow, it really is permanent. And it's not about, I have days when I just feel a little like this and like that, because I was contemplating a lot on this lately, how people just have come across this belief that we have both good and bad days. It's not about how the days are like, it's about us fluctuating and navigating through both darkness and light, because we can't truly be in the embodiment of the soulful presence if we don't embrace both aspects and really embrace unity as a unification of all life. Everything in life is already perfect and interconnected and in the interdependent relationship. But when we're in duality perspective, I'm not going to say consciousness, because it's not even consciousness truly. It's just that it's like an absence of it, and then you see everything through the eyes of this duality or dualism. And in that state, it's like everything has its opposite. But the unified world, the world of unification, has no opposites, and it's actually a world of wisdom. And wisdom, as you know, cannot be taught. No one can pass it over to you. We can share it, we can breathe it, we can really just emanate it basically, but we can't really teach it to someone. That's why in all my years of this work and sharing with you unconditionally, I never said this is the way you go to Ascension. I've shared certain aspects of knowledge, because knowledge is the only thing you can truly teach. We can't teach wisdom. And how everyone then takes bits and pieces of that knowledge and how they apply it to their own life will be the corresponding factor that will eventually get them to born that wisdom within. And I want to share this unification story through a recent unfolding for me. And it was actually a beautiful encounter, because one day I was just sitting there in the room. I had my little cereal, right, just before I went here to the beach, mountain beach. And there was a book there looking at me, and it was a book that my mother actually got as a gift, and it was from Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha. And looking at the book, it's just staring at me, which is what rarely happens. You know, I'm always like on the go. Just take the book. I said, okay, I'm just eating here. I can take a few, you know, like looks and just, you know, just open the first page. And it starts with this, you know, beautiful opening about love, how Siddhartha was when he was very young, how loved he was by everything, by everyone, how they all saw his spark. But he didn't feel that way about himself at the beginning, right? He wanted more. He wanted to search something else. So I was moved. I was moved to tears when I started reading that. And I said, okay, we're already reading Earth, right? Pleiadian book. Like, okay, I just have to take it with me. And that day I just read almost the whole book. It's like not a very long book, which is something I really love. I was like, why did I never read this before? It was strange, because, you know, it's like, I'm not like a huge reader. But these like works of art, you know, it's like something that usually comes as a very well-known works. And so I'm thinking, wow, this is just, I couldn't stop reading it. It was that good. And that moment, it just really pulled me. I think it was exactly on 8th of 8th Gateway that I was really pulled into the vortex of this book. And it's written in such a beautiful language, like half poetry, half prose. And it's just beautiful the way it's written. I always love works that are simple and right on point. And it actually talks about this journey that, you know, in many works it's already, I think, similarly explain how, you know, the first level, when someone starts to seek themselves, they go and they renounce the whole world and themselves, and they want to kind of escape this world. They want to find a way to the other worlds, and, you know, finding all these ways and methods and becoming ascetic and, you know, becoming a mystic in that way. trying to negate life and being other things and going out of the body and becoming other things and other aspects of life, you know, trying to break through that barrier of what is me and what's that which is beyond me, that Atman, you know, and beyond that even, you know, it's like Paramatman. And then it just continues, right? And I'm sure most of you probably read the book because it's so famous. But there were some elements in it that really, really resonated with me because it's exactly was the emphasis of everything in my own life. It's not what I was actually teaching. But one thing that really stuck out was when I shared so many times with you that, I don't know if I ever shared it, but you know, when I get my channelings, when I get this or I receive something, I say, ooh, this can be a video, this is, or this has a potential to really, you know, share something beautiful, unique. The moment I record it, it doesn't feel the same anymore. The moment I put it in the written, even when I write things or a spoken word, it's no longer the same as that feeling, that spark that arose first within me in my consciousness. And that's exactly what's described in that book. That the moment you kind of like, you have that wisdom, something comes through you, you put it in a something, or you share it, or it's in teaching, it changes value. It's not that now it doesn't have value, but it's a different value than what really primarily comes through you. So the fact, which I really love most, well, many things, but let's say I'm going to focus on two things. One is, you know, when he meets Gautama Buddha and he has a conversation with him, he kind of seeks him out and says, look, I have to tell you something, because his friend decides to go in the path of seeking, and he goes into the path of knowing, the inner knowing, going and exploring the whole world through exploring the self. And basically it's true, because how much we really know about the world and how much we know about ourselves. And we know all these facts and information and languages and data, and you know, everyone now is kind of like competing who knows more about the world, but we don't know anything about the self. Well, most of the people. And it's beautifully explained how when you go seek something like a goal, that is always like, it kind of eliminates all the other potentialities of life that are always there, because you're so focused on the goal, you can't see what comes along in the meantime, which is already part of that, the goal, if you want to call it like that. But it's really not. It's just this journey through life force, just being in every moment where you need to be, and getting little pieces of gifts and you know, crystallized presence, which becomes wisdom when you get it, when you really get it. And I remember moments when in my life, much before, many years before, when something didn't go the way I thought, you know, I should do it, because I was so focused on what I need to do. And something was like, it felt like a friction kind of energy, and I kind of pushed through. And then at the end, you know, you get like into this typical mode when you're bantering. You're like, oh, this universe and this and that, it's all going wrong, right? And this is where most people believe you're supposed to have also bad days. But in my recent initiation, we went to this lake, and before there, I wanted to go somewhere else, get something, which is very obvious it's not for me, because the sign was there. You know, my navigation did not want to bring me there. It was an error in the system. And I was like, how to go there? And even though I try to pull and get manual instructions there and just go there to that place, and nothing was there for me. It was like everything went wrong, you know, if you want to look at it that way. Even my wheel at a certain point, it just froze. It's kind of, you know, it's like locked mode. It was like everything, the body is so intelligent now. All of the life force was, when you're so strong in your magnetic electric nature, when you really have cultivated this life force mastery within you, it will be so quick in your reality what is for you and what is not. It's like the first sign, and if you listen to the first sign, if you're really wise, then you're going to see, right? Sometimes we don't, and what we get instead is like this friction, and there's always this friction. And you know, as a being who cultivates this life force mastery and manifestation path, which is not manifestation through effort, like this strain, which is basically still based on duality, but this new consciousness, which is just the flow of life, if it's effortless, if it's in co-creation with life, with the unison principles of life, then it's truly through a life force, and then it's for you, it works through you, and therefore you can't lose it, it can't elude you, it can't escape you. So in that moment, it was too late, because when I get to my goal, my destination where I thought I'm going to get this, it was very obvious I can't get that. I was like, but it was obvious in the first sign. The navigation system did not want to bring me there. And instead of, you know, I remember the old self, which was like, why did you do? And I had to go all this way, and it's a beautiful sunny day, I'm losing my time, you know, all this, you know, this was all versions of us, because we were so much in the thinking, which was like ingrained within us. And what I when I got that, I was like, why didn't I listen before? And instead of judging myself, I said, oh, I still have aspects of that. I said, thank you. Because truly, universe is not something you can complain to, right? You're not getting something or something isn't working out. But it's something that works through you and with you. And sometimes you see the signs, sometimes you don't. And even when you don't, it's like something necessarily coming through as that mirror. And all you can do in that enlightened mode is not to say, I'm not enlightened because I didn't read the science correctly the first time. I'm so stupid, right? But you're just really flowing. And you're seeing, oh, thank you for that mirror. Thank you, life, because now I can see that I still have these aspects, that they still are playing themselves out. And then you can just observe them and thank them for their messages, for everything. It's just clear out the path. And then I said, I'm going to my next destination, which I felt was really aligned. It was all easy, it was flow. Even when the navigation kind of put me a little bit off track, I just knew, no, I'm going there. And I was in my power. Because life force worked through me, because it was yes, it was something for me, and it was like so easily got there. We had the most beautiful day by that lake. This is when actually I finished reading the Siddhartha book, and it was just so beautiful because it's through the journey of that, you know, you can go and seek, like the path of seeking, or the path of renouncing the world and saying it's an illusion. As you know, Spirit will always tell you when you truly are aligned with the presence of this, all that makes life through divine love, all that makes it real. And you say, well, they're teaching that this is all these objects and things are all an illusion. Is that real? And then people sometimes are seeking for lifetimes to get an answer to that question, instead of just living life and letting life teach them. And this is how I've been all my life. I've been a hermit, letting life teach me. I never had masters, teachers, gurus. No one ever resonated with me to that degree when I could say, yeah, I really pieces here and there to remind me of an aspect that's mirrored through them back to me, but then always coming back to the self. And that's why I resonated so much with this path, because the path in this book that's described is you have to go through everything that is right for you, even when, you know, there is a period in his life when he totally has fallen into this consciousness of the worldly, of, you know, material goods, possessions, you know, even addictions and gambling and those kind of things, and alcohol, and a life that's truly just complete cutoff of that voice which he already had and felt. So it clearly shows you that even when you say, oh, I'm in this enlightened phase, I'm going to keep it, when you try to maintain it, no, because if there's aspects that are still calling to be unified, more unification of life through love, for you to really get what's the point, it will continually push you in that direction. What more you have to get, because like I said before, you can sit in the cave, feel already enlightened, but then you go about life. Life still has messages and lessons for you in that way, like it was for me yesterday. I was like, oh, I still have these aspects of me, thank you. If I just sat at home, did nothing, they wouldn't necessarily come out as beautifully and the way they did when I went for that adventure. Ended up beautifully. It started a little, you know, with little lessons. Okay, birds are fighting there. All week they're like this. They're really feeling the eclipse energy. They're like really loud. Yes, so where was I? When you simply have to go through something, you will go. No one can prevent you. No one can kind of like suffocate you with their love so that you wouldn't have to experience this or go through this like we sometimes do with our children. It's like, if it's for the greater good, you have to experience that, even aspects that you would consider as negative, dark, shadowy, that which really moves you into becoming the inner knower, the embody, not just the knower, but the embodier of truth. Okay, truth as vertical expression has no meaning. It has a value in our thoughts, but it's simply not enough. So when he was challenged, you know, someone said to you, you know, you knew that this was, you know, this was kind of like the way of this life and materialism and fame and richness, whatever, that's not good. They've already taught you this as a child. They were teaching you this, and you knew it yourself, but that wasn't enough. You had to literally experience the energy, because before he did, he always had a little judgment, or even sometimes like despising people who are still living those aspects out. I look at them and their worldly problems and this and that, haha, they're like children and I'm like this star person. That's how it felt through his sharing. Until each experience he had, he was getting closer to embodying the humanity, the human spirit, not just like this enlightened being was vertical, and a thinker, right? A contemplator, someone who fasts all the time and just knows this inner spiritual technology to get to a certain way so they can move their body that way, to truly be independent from the material realm. But in truth, as long as we're here on Earth, we can never truly be independent from Earth herself, because we're in an interdependent relationship with her, with the goddess, with the feminine force, the feminine principle of life. And then he got to this point when he said, well, I'm loving all these people now, because he went through all these experiences. And then he says, you know, the only thing now that's giving me a little, like the difference between me and the rest of the humans is the awareness within me. So he had the awareness of all being unified and unification of all life, everything that's playing a part. And that's why in his story, when he met Gautama Buddha, he said to him, you know, he saw his presence, he saw that he truly was an illumined being. But then he said, but the way you're teaching it, he said, you're making it into teaching and people becoming the monks, and you know, you're saying, you're trying to put people out of the misery and the suffering, how to end it. But that in itself eliminates this when you're saying all life is unified. So it's like almost like not seeing the value in that. So you're trying to, it was like, he said, that created a loophole in the whole unification. So it still kept something separate. And he said, you know, I'm going my own way to truly do that as an inner path. And our paths, the way people get to this state of true illumination, vertically and horizontally, and truly embodying divine love, or at least knowing that every day you can devote yourself to becoming more and more of divine love. It's not like it's a goal. All you have is a devotion in your heart that every day you embody divine love in whatever way, shape, and form, without the external conditions, situations, even people, whatever prospects can have an influence, you know, on you, that you cannot do that or cannot embody that, or in any way you fall, you're going back into the fallen consciousness. So yes, so there's many ways you can get there. It's not like the way through seeking. He said, and I got this vision like, okay, there's all these gurus that create so many seekers in the world, and there's seeking is an internal process. And he said to his friend, which he meets many, many years later when they're both much older, like older men, and the person does not even recognize him. He always recognizes his friend, but the other one doesn't recognize him because he's so fixated on this, his goal, his attainment, you know, this enlightenment, he's always having 1,000 questions, and you can recognize a seeker by that. Nothing is ever enough. They never just embrace the moment in life and letting life teach you and humble you through your own experience. So I've shared this before, that the recognition of the divine sacred child is the recognition of life, the experience which is holy. And the illusion, like I said, the Maya, is not things and objects in the external realm. Creation is real as you can see it. But it's the observation which we see it. So if it's coming through without, you know, the eyes without love and duality, that's the veil. The veil is within you, within us. It's not the physical world, the realm. We're saying the third dimensional world is an illusion. No, third dimensional world is a match, a frequency match and representation of third dimension. Consciousness life responds this way through certain laws of creation. It works, functions a certain way. It's not an illusion. But when you are in illusion of separateness within it, you know, that can be in the third dimension, fifth dimension, even whatever it is. There can be a Maya because it still exists as a state of your perception. So it's not an Maya even, or an illusion is not also an external state. So what is that framework of life which makes us truly new? So my topic today is this eclipse creating a pivotal point where our life is truly written anew. And when I say new, it's like not like suddenly you're given something and you're moving somewhere and it's a physical move or it's a physical change and you say, now I'm new. This begins within. This begins with you just feeling something that awakens within you. And you know, like this book of Siddhartha is the book of many deaths and rebirths. So many times he became alive and he thought, oh, now this is it. But then again, something, and again, he was reborn. And he had to allow even the wounds to unfold in their own natural way so that the wisdom could be integrated in a very natural way without you trying to push it. Okay? And this is what's taking place, is suddenly you don't know why you're different. In a certain moment, you just feel like, I'm different. What happened? Because even in my own life, a few months ago, I had a really, really challenging time. I've shared with you all this happening, this chaos here, everything was like, it was just wearing me down. It was bringing me down. I felt like being suffocated and locked in this bird in the cage. And this was one aspect that he felt like he was the bird in the cage. He was doing it to himself. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it to yourself, being self-destructive, or the environment within you, around you being self-destructive in a way. And then it's like, what happened? But why suddenly I feel this joy for life again? What changed? And what's truly coming from the illumined presence, you don't know. Because it's not like something you worked, or there's these mantras you've repeated, or this technique you've done in order to get there. It just happened. Every step was a part of that. Everything was in cooperation for that synthesis. When you feel just different, you feel, well, what's with my consciousness, and why does it now feel more stable than ever before? And you might not have a direct answer because it's not meant to be like this. You're just acknowledging that change. And it's that life within and you, and when you have that stability, you can master anything. Okay, one example I was recently shown, it was actually that day by the lake. I usually was very irritated when people around me, wherever it was, in a public spot. I really avoid public spots, but sometimes I'm guided to go to a certain place energetically. There's a reason, I don't know, and there's people around. What can you do? We can't isolate ourselves. Like I said before, isolation is born of separation. Solitude, aloneness, you can be even in the group of people and you can feel that solitude and aloneness because you're in your vortex. That's so different. You're still including all life, all sounds or voices, babies crying, people eating, people yelling. It's all a part of this oneness, okay? And like in the book, the river, right? The river represented the eternal sound of Om, which is the sound of all creation and perfection. It's the perfect sound. And when you embody that Om, you are the perfect one as well. You're the illumined one, the shining one. So there was an example, like the whole day was fine, and someone by the end of the day, and I was just starting to do yoga. And I was like, why now? Someone coming, and they're like smoking all the time. I'm like, I'm not going to move, because all of a sudden I felt this no longer works, right? We're always the ones who have to move and withdraw because people have their more invasive or dense modes of being and existing. And you're like, why am I always, needing to move? Okay, sometimes you're guided. You find a perfect spot. But what if you found it and there's still something like that? And you can't always say, it's my fault because I'm attracting this. That's a new age kind of thing. It's no one's fault that things are the way they are, because things are, like I said before, they are unified. They are aspects of life that coexist, which you can't just eliminate, shoot it off, make it dead, make it disappear. But what can you do? I was shown, like, instead of focusing and always withdrawing and going away, and it's like, then you're still acknowledging it as a factor of disturbance. And how many times do we think, wait a minute, right? Oh, these birds, sorry, they're just like, they're all the time here. It's like one just spread their wings like really much and then went on the tree. Beautiful. Okay, I wish you saw sometimes what I see, but anyway, yeah. So how many times do we think about, if we were truly one with nature, with the environment, with the elements, we can work with elements. We are magicians working with the elements. So in that moment, I simply had an intention to work with the elements. So there would be the kind of wind, the kind of air, kind of breeze, whatever you call it, the kind of energy, that even if that person smokes, it kind of does not come towards me. It does not affect me. Again, remember that statement. Nothing of the external affects me. My joy, my state of bliss, my experience that I'm creating through divine ecstasy and well-being and harmony. And all of a sudden, it worked. I didn't smell it anymore. It was there, but it was kind of like a little distant, a little pest, because it's just more and more withdrawing. And I said, why do we not use all this unity in a practical way? Is because we were still existing in separation. And we know that. That's why knowing is not enough. And for us to have physical experiences, when we embody these things and these traits, we sometimes will be nudged. We will be pushed in these environments that are not always the best or the purest, so that we can develop the kind of skills that we have, which are basically very simple. This is not, something you have to learn and I don't know what kind of thing. This is just the art of intention, the art of knowing the unity of life. So if you're already unified with all life, and something in life pesters you, right? It's a pest. It's annoying. It's a disturbance. It is, okay, you acknowledge it like that, but it doesn't have to affect you. That's the thing. because it's still a part of the unified world, which you're not a victim of, and someone else is also not. So what can you do through unity? And this is what I was shown, working with the elements, so that that person is in their bubble doing what they are. I'm in my own. And there's no more of that separation or disturbance, which is felt in a way that irritates. Okay, so going back to, that book, that aspect which was about the teaching, the wisdom, and that's what his message was. So that Buddha could be himself in that state, and he could be an illumined one. But it's not like he can teach that, because he had it in an instant. He cannot teach that instant to people, like how it happened. So he created a regime, you know, how people should be, and the monks, people who were accepted in that teaching system. He said, why did he create that? And maybe it works for some people and it had a purpose, because things always do. But he himself has chosen a path of going his own way, listening to his own voice, finding his own self, knowing his own self, because through knowing himself, the seeking it just dissolves, because your focus is on knowing, not on seeking. So seeking creates an eternal seeking. Seeking just, you know, like people who operate that they create seekers, they'll just create more seekers. So if you are really unified with yourself, your desire for attainment will be, I wish to be a master of my own knowing. For that, you have to first know yourself. Okay, so it's really beautiful. But the most beautiful part for me was in this final words about love, that everything truly is about love. And then he meets his friend again. After so many years, he doesn't again recognize him. And he asks him, he says, well, I'm still in disturbance. I see you found your harmony. I see you're in peace. I see it. He saw it in his glow and everything. But he said, I'm still not in this peace. I hope you find it. He was still seeking after all those years, and he was an old man. And he asked him something. He said, well, your problem is that you're always seeking and that goal, and you can't see all around it. You can't accept all life. You can't embrace all life due to the fact that you're chasing that goal. Even when people chase enlightenment, it's the same thing. It happens to happen during the course of everything you're doing. It's like a preparation, your devotion. You know, when beings, or let's say ascended masters, when they had their moment of ascension, they didn't say, oh, I did this and that, and then I have a formula recipe how it happened. Because it's so mystical, you cannot teach it, because there is no formula. Like the way I felt the shift within me during the couple of last weeks, it's like I cannot make that into a video. This something that was this transformative shift, there's no words for it, and that is this presence which is felt, and you can put it into words. So basically the most sacred, the holiest things we can teach, that's the artistry, and everyone will have to find their own way, and it's the beauty in this. And knowing this makes us so free and liberated from all the seeking, and all the seeking out these teachings, and who's right and who's the right teacher, who's the real light worker, who's fake, who's false. Just let all that go. You know, and when you really do that, you drop that need, the tendency to always, you know, and you start moving into just living life enthusiastically with the spark of joy and magic. And sometimes that tires me out, because when I'm observing myself, when I truly look at myself and how my divine sacred child is, the sacred birth within me, it's like it's always wanting to take every juice of life out. It wants to live to the fullest. And when I don't feel like this, when I had that feeling a few months ago, I was like, where am I? Where truly I am? And that was in integration mode at that time, and it was part of the process. I couldn't like say, I want to shoot that process off, or it's a side branch and it's not working for me. It wasn't like a matter of choice, because that was already chosen. It was already happening this way for a reason, for me to feel that. And when there's a spark of transformation, which again, like I said, it's a mystical one. You don't know when it happened, how it happened. It's just one day you're like, have you ever had an injury which you've constantly felt that pain and you focused on it, and when the healing happened, like when you really felt no more pain, or you could walk again, or you don't know when it happened, you know, like let's say you have a backache. I had this many times. It was like always, every day it's like, oh, and then one day I'm like, when did my back stop hurting? And I never can locate that moment. You cannot like locate it somewhere in a map or in a time zone, because truly this is when you realize that time is not linear. In events like this, when you experience them, when it's a mystical transformation and you can just laugh at yourself and you're like, when did I shift from no more fighting or no more yelling or screaming? When did I stop being angry? You go back, you can't trace that moment, because again, the law of non-linearity, whatever you call it, And embracing life and this juice, you know, taking all the juice of life is what he experienced. He said, words and these thoughts, he said, they're meaningless to me. I focus rather on these objects, right? And when he meets his, not objects, you know, but things that are real. And then he meets his friend after so many years, like I said, and he's still seeking, and he asks him for a piece of wisdom, and he tells him all that. And you know, he didn't get it, because at the end he still asked, well, why did you tell me the story in the first place? He couldn't get it because he didn't read it through the spark that he really shared it with. He was still looking at the goal in his words for what he wanted to hear, what he wanted to get out of it, but he didn't, right? So he was not open to the message being felt through love, through just the reality of what it wanted to be shared. He wanted to filter it his own way, so that's why he can really hear it and absorb it through his own being. And it was funny, it was just like laughable moments, like, come on dude, just get it, okay? And yeah, everyone is where they are. It was really beautiful when he explains that all this cannot compare with the reality of what is, and when you embrace love and life, creation in its finest, the masterpiece, the artisan, that source and the primary creator is through all of us as also being primary creators, just like mini versions of it, and it's also beautiful. And when you embrace that love, the child, this is when your life becomes full of magic and the spark is ignited and you live that way. And this is why the things that I share are getting more and more towards this, because all the knowledge, all the words I said before, for me, you know, maybe they have resonance to someone who's at that spark right now. But when I look back on all those videos, I'm like, why all those words? You know, you get to a certain point, you're like, why did I use so many words? But they were meaningful in that moment. That's the thing. We cannot render anything as meaningless, because the duality, the world of duality teaches us that everything is meaningless and life is not unified. The biggest mistake. And this is where seeking comes into action, because we're seeking meaning in something that we're already told that it's meaningless. It's pointless, it's useless. But when you understand that everything is unified and meaningful, we easily can shift. And it's not like something that's born in our thoughts. We clearly feel that this is how it is. And when you can see meaning in everything, like today, one example is I was somewhere else. I was running in this mountain valley, and I was doing yoga there. I came back with an item I found. It was this tiny little Swiss knife that had parrot on it. It was very colorful, very vivid colors, rainbow colors. Had a deep meaning for me. And then I'm here, I meet my mother on our little sacred spot. She's starting to tell me about this green feather she's found, like very fleshy colors. Like, wait a minute, we both showing each other items. We found them at the same day, like these items somewhere randomly. And we're laughing because, like, if we try to find meaning in it, like, why is it like this? Then we're already rendering the experience, and we're making it into something far less than it truly is when it's just experience. Well, there's a knowing, wow, how beautifully synchronized everything is, and what magic it is in life when you start to live every day through this magical divine child, which is you birthed in life, okay? And life calling you out and always speaking through you, moving through you. That's what life wants. And this is how, like I said, we're lifting up the planetary consciousness and Gaia herself. And when I have this title, like starting this life, the life anew begins, it's the consciousness that's new, and many of you will feel it. And you're going to try to trace steps why you're now like this. What did you do so you can show others? You know, they're always saying you teach your steps that you went through others. Basically, no. It's like, who are we to say someone is meant to retrace my steps? It's like source, through so many aspects that we all are, does not operate this way. Again, it's like, it's all about resonance. It's sharing resonance with each other, not like steps. You know, people teach these steps, 5 steps to truly manifest, or 5 ways to really get to your, you know, perfect destination. 10 signs this is a twin flame relationship. It's all like rendered in numerals. It's all counted, and it's all like so linear. Why? Why are you making things so beautiful and mystic, so linear? Where's true wisdom in that? And until we do that, we won't be able to birth that wisdom. And until we birth the inner child, that's the paradox, we can't be wise. Because we think, well, the children aspect, that's not really wisdom. Yes, it is. Look at the new children. Why they're already so wise. Just like babies, they're already knowing of the whole cosmos. You have children now teaching their parents about planets and stuff, and crystals and how they work. there's wisdom in this. They're already in that aspect. They're already birthed to triangulation union, and their DNA is already that expanded. But that's again another story. So it's all connected. And the moment we say, if you teach something without needing to teach, you're simply sharing about it through resonance, through love, because love makes you do something. And this is what he got through Buddha. He said, you know, even though he was like this and he was teaching his students or disciples not to love, because love keeps you in this material world and it does not keep you in this higher state or whatever, he said he still had love, because love made him do that thing for people. It made him serve the people. It made him do all the sacrifice so that he could devote his life only to serving the people in the way he thought was best in that moment. So that is love, even though in his teaching was like, no, love keeps you trapped into this lower density world, which we need to escape, right? So even when sometimes people are not aware, they're in that state of love. It's just whether we're awake to it and awake to the world of unification and unity of all life or not. So when I read that book, I felt such simple words, so simple. And it spoke to me in ways that a lot of the information I read can never speak to me, because it was that simple. It's like the whole cosmos is written in one story. And when someone can make it such a beautiful work of art without thinking, he probably didn't think I'm going to write this book to enlighten people. He just wrote because it was somehow coming through him. It inspired him, and because it inspires you, when you share something, it inspires maybe someone else. Doesn't mean they have to retrace your steps. That doesn't work. The world is not like that. It's all unique. We're trying to render it in that way that someone creates a religion out of their own spiritual transformation. It's already fake in a way. Well, again, nothing can truly be fake. I've again shared this myself before, but it's no longer has that component of absolute truth in it. There's like still layers of separation there somewhere hidden, and we have to find that so that we can find the precious jewel that life truly is, that everything truly is. And when you really become wise, like, people will see you, people will feel that, and that's enough. It will make them believe in that they're still there, and it will make them resonate with wisdom. So when you share something, when someone resonates with that divine quality, their intention is aligned with that, so they're kind of being magnetized, they're pulling that in their vortex, they're therefore creating that as well. This is what is meant through true teaching, through sharing, in unconditioned love and acceptance, which is through the feminine principle, instead of the teaching that was old and dogmatic, that's now really, really past its time and due date. It's like past its shelf age, right? Like items in the store, in the aisle somewhere. It's like, it was so vertical. I had this transformation. I need trace steps, how to attain that. And when people try to attain someone else's steps, they're always going to fail. Because ascension truly, spiritual, physical ascension, doesn't matter. They're kind of unified anyway. They will have to have their own experience, and you kind of take the gift away. So in my own case, you know, when I shared all these courses with you, they're just pieces of that cosmic understanding that can expand broaden your perception. But those final steps, there is no really code. It's like the code comes from us embodying that love, and each we find the way through our own vessel of embodiment to do it in a unique way, and that uniqueness cannot be shared because there's a meaning, and that's the reason of uniqueness. So this maybe will resonate with those of you who maybe still had a little bit of that seeking there within you, and are just ready to let that go. See that everything truly is a goal. There's no goals, and because there is no, everything is. And we had like this, we were discussing this topic of, you know, how now the feminines are so obsessed with their bodies, and it's like, oh, look at this, I have this cellulite, oh, I have this, you know. And my mother always tells me, who made that up? Who said, someone just named it that. Someone must have been the first person who somewhere, they said, ooh, this is that, I'm going to call it like this, and it's not normal. If we were brought up with the perspective that there's just, our tissue sometimes looks like that, especially if there's more feminine hormones there, it's just like, how the tissue under the skin is wired, and it's just a part of the feminine hormones and the feminine way of, you know, expressing in the body. And sometimes people have more masculine hormones, sometimes people have more feminine hormones, and that's the only difference. It's not just the food they eat and all that. It's like they're still trying to find the recipe for it. And my mom said nothing works. Every year they find a new formula, but nothing works because that's not the cause. Again, it's mystic, you see, because the moment you're trying to find the cost for this and get a right prescription, right recipe, right ingredients, now that everyone can, you know, put them on and apply them and they're going to look perfect or behave perfect or become enlightened, it doesn't work that way, okay? Again, it's like, imagine the moment you've accepted something, like let's say you've really accepted that you're angry, anger went away. Let's say you really accepted that you have that kind of skin, you have cellulite, if that's even a word, someone named it like this. You have a tissue that has holes in it, okay, when you press or whatever. And one day you're like, you're really loving it, not just saying to yourself, I love it, I love it, I love it, like repeating like a robot, but you just one day you accept it as a part of your body. And maybe eventually, just because it was so loved, it starts to shape differently, your cells realign. No one knows that, but we have to go through the experience that maybe will show us that it is possible to reframe our bodies this way. And saying it is possible without even having your own experience with it, again, it's a part of dogmatic. I'm just gonna say it like this. You're trying to teach something you haven't even experienced in life before. And some of us had experiences in other realms, that this worked, that worked. Yes, but what about here now on Earth? And this time, and this frame of work, and this field of work, things are different. Situations are different, conditions are different, there's different cosmic ingredients every single time. And the only way to truly know the recipe of life is to keep on cooking, to keep on mixing and fusing together and just adding the ingredients. And one day it's like, what just happened? You know, like when you make a fine meal, you probably didn't do it like by the recipe. Let me tell you, every time I did things by the recipe, it all sucked. Ugh. Until I developed a knowing, I remember that that's not the way I work. It's not the way I function. And I started doing, that was many years ago, everything naturally and spontaneously, because that kind of kept me trapped in doing things that way and through the amounts and measurements. And oh, I hated that. I truly did. And every time, if someone asked you, how did you do that? I don't know. Even I don't know. It just happened. So embracing this mystical life, this new life that now wants to be born. And Leo is that juiciness of life. It is the inner child also. It represents that because it's related with the 5th house, which is also the house of inner creativity, the inner child, the children, maybe your children, but again, first it begins with your child. The masterful creation. Before all your other creations is your child, is your divine embodiment of this child of grace, of wisdom, of holiness, Holy Spirit child. So a long awaited time. This is what came through. I hope you enjoyed that little transmission, although I always say, oh, I'm not going to work this month, right? I'm not going to record, and it's too hot, and then in the evening I'm full of work, and love does what it does, you know. Recently someone, I asked them if they want like an oracle reading, right, when they donated, and they said to me like, okay, but only if that's fine with you. And then I said, that's okay, I just felt called to ask. And they said, well, I just respect your time so much. And I said, well, my time is my joy, and my joy is my service. So that is no separation. My time is not like something out of the picture. It's like something separate from this sharing, this giving. So yeah, that's how I see it. Life truly is beautiful. La vita è bella. And I'm gonna leave you and with this thought, and I hope to share again very soon. Whenever consciousness says, ooh, yeah, it clicks, it resonates. And with so much love, wisdom, and power, great attainment as always, with the greatest love for yourself, for our whole self as one. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. So much love.